Welcome to Handi Quilter Watch and Learn. Would you like to find out more about background fills? Today we're going to be talking about Kim's Trellis quilt and how she chose to do something just a little different and focus on the background. Thank you for joining us for Watch and Learn. I'm Denise Dowdrick, and
I'm Kim Sandberg.
Kristina Whitney.
And today we're talking all about Kim's Trellis quilt.
Yeah, my trellis quilt. So this has been a fun project that we've all worked on. This is a pattern that is available at handiquilter.com if you'd like to purchase it and make your own version of it. It's been kind of a fun quilt. Just to start with, I actually made the big quilt this time.
I followed the instructions.
I know.
I made mine really small.
Big, exactly right. So I added some extra to mine to make it square because I thought it was going to be big, and it's like 50 inches square. So it's a smaller quilt. That was the only thing I did different for piecing. Beyond that, yeah, then we'll just dive into questions we've got about my quilting process.
Should we talk about our favorite tools for unpicking?
Yeah.
Because all of us did it.
Here's actually a picture of an entire set of the section of them that I pieced wrong and got to unpick. And bless me, I did it twice. So just know that if you decide to make this quilt with us and you do the same thing, take the time to sew one together, pull it off the machine, and make sure that you have them all set up the correct way before you piece all of them. Because yeah, it did take quite a while. Yeah. I think I spent more time unpicking than I actually did sewing on this.
Yeah. And if you are chain piecing, you got to be careful, because if you flip one and then you just keep doing them all wrong,
That's
so
what I did.
I think we all did that.
I think we all did that. And honestly, Kim and Kristina, you both started before I did, and I got the benefit of all of their tips. I still made the same mistakes. Still made the same mistakes. So I got out some Post-its, made myself little sticky notes, and labeled things because, and mainly it was just arrows pointing on those sticky notes, like, don't make the same mistake again.
Yeah.
It was fun.
It was fun.
It was fun.
It's pieced.
It's pieced.
Yes.
It's done. I did, yeah, I think everything else I did basically according to the directions, after I got the unpicking done. So,
okay. So let's talk post-piecing. We're ready to quilt, okay? So I'm going to ask you some questions.
Yeah, go for it.
And you're going to answer them. What was going through your head when you were doing this?
Okay.
Okay. What is the quilt going to be used for?
Oh, it's going to be a wall hanging. I had thought when I was making it bigger, it was going to be big enough that I could have like this awesome red and white quilt to put on a bed. I guess it could go on my dog bed. That's about the right size.
You could add some more borders.
I could add some more borders. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a wall hanging though.
Okay. Yeah. So what do you want the focus of your quilt to be?
Definitely not the piecing. My piecing was not, especially after all the unpicking, I got kind of frustrated with it, and I was not as careful or precise as I usually like to be. So I've decided to do what is definitely a secondary design on here so that it's not, the piecing's there, but it is not the focus of the quilt. This quilt is really all about the quilting.
Okay. With that being said, I'm assuming you're doing custom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you were preparing this, did you take into consideration how much time you were going to have?
Yeah, and then it ended up taking way longer. So the day that I spent quilting at home on this in my personal quilting studio, I just did all of the background. I laid down all of the framework. We kind of talked about this with both of your quilts. Just laying down that framework, and then I want to go back and put background fills in it. I thought that would take me maybe 2 or 3 hours. It took me over 6 hours to get all of it in. It just took time. I did decide to use, I started out with a ruler and I did 2 lines, and because I decided to use 2 layers of batting, I was kind of battling the batting. You guys know what I'm talking about? When you've got that thicker batting and you're trying to do rulers, it doesn't always work so great. So I decided to use Mark in Pro Stitcher. And so that's how I did all of the straight lines. I laid down the framework with the straight lines, and then I did the circles also with Pro Stitcher. But all the background fills, I did free motion, which was really fun.
Okay, so did you push yourself to try anything new, or did you keep the skill level where you're at?
Oh, I definitely pushed myself on this one. I have never done a quilt like this where the piecing and the quilting don't match up in some way, other than I guess maybe like an edge to edge. But I've never done a custom quilt like this where I actually, you know, that first episode, we took the preview paper and laid it out. You guys saw how I drew the lines and everything on it. I had to do a lot of marking on this quilt. I think that's part of the reason why it took so long to get all of the framework laid down too, is because there was a lot of measuring and marking because I was not using any landmarks within the piecing for the quilting.
Okay.
So very different. Very
Fun.
different for me.
What marking tool did you use?
I used a Bowen, the little chalk pencil.
pencil? Okay.
Yeah, my blue water soluble
Is it dried up?
was dried up. And I had an air erase one and I started using that one. But apparently my sewing room was very humid that day because I did a bunch of marks and I turned around and they were gone. So I started using the little pencil.
Perfect. Okay. What quilting style? Traditional, modern?
Definitely modern. Modern
Okay.
all the way.
Perfect.
This is not anything that your grandmother would have done with quilting, for sure, for sure.
I think we need to have a challenge
Okay,
where I have to do modern
Okay.
and you have to do traditional.
okay, we could do that.
Denise, what are we going to challenge you with?
Not edge to edge.
She has to do
Edge
custom
to edge
too.
is my go-to. It's just so quick.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
It is.
We'll have you do some
I
custom.
know. Well,
We'll have to figure out a style.
we'll have to do it, and you know, I've got to say, after doing this red and white quilt, I want to do another red and white quilt that can be a bigger one. So maybe that's red and white quilts are super traditional. So maybe that'll be my traditional quilt. We'll see.
Okay. And I do have one coming up that might be a little bit more modern, piecing. Oh, okay. We're going to have fun with
Maybe
this.
we just put ideas in a jar and we have to reach in and pull
grab.
something out.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, that could be fun.
Oh, that's like scrappy style quilting.
Oh, you have to do a scrappy quilt.
Oh. Kristina, I don't know if I can. Don't know if I can.
We got to sit there and watch and make sure she doesn't match fabric.
You can't buy any fabric for this one.
Okay,
we've
that's
got-
definitely a challenge.
We've got our next set of challenges.
Yes.
So
Okay. Let's
stay
get back
tuned.
to yours.
That'll be coming.
We
Yes.
squirreled there.
Yes.
Okay. You talked about you used 2 layers of batting.
I use the 80-20 with the wool on the top. So that traditional. I like the 80-20 on the back because with the wall hanging, it helps it hang a little more straight, and then the wool gives it that nice loft.
Yeah.
Show off the quilting.
Perfect. Okay. We've got this
Thread.
beautiful thread sitting in front of us.
Yes.
Talk to us about the thread that you chose.
So this is the thread that I ended up using for all of the framework, and this was one that we looked at earlier. So this is a King Tut. It's called Ramsey's Red, and it's actually pretty cool because it's got actually purple and orange in it.
Yeah.
But for all the framework I did, it looked amazing on the quilt. But when I went back to do the background fills, this thread was just too heavy. It was completely, essentially erasing all of the white piecing in the quilt. So I auditioned 2 different threads here. These are both Micro Quilter from Superior Threads. And the red, once again, it was just too much going over the top of the white. So I'm actually using this gray Micro Quilter for the background fills because it's amazing how it just blends in. I thought about using monopoly, but once again, challenging myself to do something different because I tend to use monopoly on pretty much every project I do. So this is what I'm using for my background fills. And then I had a bunch of pre-wound bobbins. This is actually so fine. These are really old bobbins. They don't even make these anymore. But this is what I used for my my bobbin thread with everything. I did use it with my with the Micro Quilter too, because I have a bunch of it and I'm trying to use it up. So
Okay.
channeling my inner Kristina, gonna use everything up.
Love it. And with using the double layer batting, that gives you a little
Yep.
bit of wiggle room with that tension. So
Exactly.
you're not having it pop up and stuff. Okay, talk to us about your auditioning process.
So
how you chose your designs. We did a little bit in our first video.
We sure did. So I really, I think that was the biggest thing that I did, was laying out the preview paper, drawing out those designs. I had the picture of this quilt that Amy Van Gerp quilted that I will freely admit, I totally ripped off her idea. Thanks for influencing me, Amy. It's amazing. It's an amazing quilt. I love the way it's quilted. And I took a lot of inspiration from that. So I did that, and after that, it was pretty much trial and error, just actually on the quilt itself. So I just kind of started playing with background fill designs that I like to fill in all of that framework, and I just let it roll from there.
Love it.
Yeah.
Should we watch some of your quilting?
Yeah, let's take a look. I got this all finished up in my quilting studio at home, and this is all the framework that took me like 6 hours of quilting. And I'm gonna go in and do some more quilting and fill in stuff here. But I wanted to show you guys, because you guys gave me a challenge. Do you guys remember what the challenge was in the first video that we did? What was the challenge?
Eyeballs!
I had to put an eyeball in there.
Asymmetrical circles sound so much nicer than eyeballs.
I like eyeballs.
So I wanna show everybody. I've got an eyeball right here that's totally looking over to the side. I think this is the one that looks most like an eyeball, because I definitely put that right there in the center. And you can see this heavier thread. It definitely shows up. I think it's fine for the framework to have that showing over the top of the white, but like I mentioned before, I didn't want to fill it in with all the other ones. So I have an eyeball here, and I have one more over here too. So
this one's more of a crop circle, I think.
yeah. This one totally could be. So, but it was fun. It was really fun to do this framework, because I dropped the circles in, and then I did all the straight line quilting around it, and I totally ignored the piecing, 100%. I just dropped things in, trying to fill in where I felt like it needed to go, and I called it good.
Now, I love that you still have your leaders and stuff on.
Yeah.
Because you're going to do some more quilting here in just a minute. But I want to point out your diagonal lines over there.
Yes.
You can't do those in a one throat space. So is this where you were doing a lot of marking, or was it with your circles?
Yes. So what I did with this one, I mentioned that I started with a ruler. Okay, this is where I did a ruler, and I actually measured and decided where I wanted to do these first couple of ones here. And I did the first few lines with ruler in the throat space. And then as I advanced it each time, I was able to use mark. And you'll see in the video, actually you saw in the video just before this, that I would actually line up and do some marking along the way so that I could keep these lines going at the angle that they needed to be. because once I established the first one, then I had a line to go off of. So yes, that's where I did my marking.
My brain's going.
I know, Kristina.
What are some other ways you can do diagonal lines without having to measure?
So I'll tell you what, I did have the thought with this one, especially because you guys, if you look here, you can see my backing is huge on this because it's a small quilt. I actually thought about loading it first on the diagonal and doing these lines all the way through, and then flipping it and doing it this way. But
that's a lot of work.
Is a lot of work. So I decided not to. Plus, this was small enough of a quilt that it only, this was only 3 throat spaces because I quilt on an Amara 24. And so I wasn't as worried about it going off. Yeah. If I was doing a bigger quilt, honestly, what I probably would have done if it was a bigger quilt, I think I would have completely drawn out these lines before I loaded it.
Yeah.
So
lots of options. I heard Denise over there say use the move function.
Yes.
So if you've got pro stitcher and use move, you get that 45-degree angle.
I thought about doing that, and then I was like, I don't think it's a 45-degree angle.
I would make mine a 45-degree angle.
I thought about it. I really did think about it, but I just,
But there's lots of different ways, but this is fabulous. Well, so I'm excited to see the fills.
Yeah.
Should we watch that next?
Yeah. Let's take a look at how I decided to fill in all these spaces. All right, well, there's the finish of the quilting, and I need to put binding on it. I'm actually going to use the backing as the binding, going with the idea of making it very modern, where the whole quilt is the red and white, the backing where it had the fun blues and blacks and reds and all the different colors in it. That's what I'm going to use as my binding because it'll create, I hope, it will create an interesting frame around the quilt.
I think the interesting frame there with the different fabrics is going to be such an amazing touch because pulling in all the background fills and how different they are combined with that different binding, you've taken a very traditional quilt and just turned it into a piece of art. It's fantastic.
Well, thanks, Denise. Channel my inner artist today.
Brownie points, check.
Yeah, there you go.
So you're going to bind it, you're going to put a sleeve on it, you're going to put a label on it. That feels like that's the hardest part.
I know. It totally is. It totally is.
Oh, good times.
But yeah, this quilt's been a lot of fun. It definitely pushed me to try a few new things. And I really loved that I got to use both Pro Stitcher, which I absolutely love, and Free Motion in the same project. I feel like I don't do that enough, and so that was another thing I did to push myself. So you guys keep reminding me that I love to do that. It really is fun, and I need to do it more.
Yep, we got to keep pushing ourselves, otherwise we become stagnant. It becomes boring.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. This was a great episode. Loved seeing all about your quilt. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and have fun quilting.